I'm fucking pissed, Brian told me one night deep into the morning. 3 a.m. in my Kingsbridge apartment, summer sweaty sticky, as I sat on the computer and looked up an antonym for somnambulant. Semi-conscious, semi-aware, semi-erect. For if all you're doing at 3 a.m. on the computer is looking for an antonym for somnambulant, you are deaf, if you know what I'm winking at here. Jesus, Brian, isn't it 3 in the morning, and isn't it dark, and aren't you dead these 9 years now? And though I miss you dearly, Cat Daddy, wouldn't there be a better time for ghostly visitations than in the pitch dark when I'm about looking up an antonym for somnambulant? An antonym for somnambulant, my dead Fanny, is the hand lotion for the antonym of somnambulant, and my anger and pissedness can no longer be put on the back burner, Brian said, floating above the ground like the showy bastard that he was. Understood, Brian, understood indeed. But if you look at the past 9 years in the timeline, if you were to take the last 9 years that you've been laying in a box in the ground and lay that timeline out on the floor here before us, certainly you'd be able to find on that floored timeline a better fucking time than this for your ghostly visitation. There's no better time than now. There's no better way to say it. There's never been a present like this present. And isn't the present called present because it's a gift? No, it's fucking not. Just a pure coincidence in the English. And I'm sure if you were to look at the word in Irish, present might be a homonym for something like hellish rainfest. Regardless, my man, regardless, neither here nor there to the task at hand. And you duck and dodge the task at hand, my man, like a somnambulant ducker and dodger. And the task at hand, Brian, the task at hand is which, Cat Daddy? The task at hand, my man, is to tell you I'm fucking pissed. And have cause, Brian said, and pointed directly at the needle sticking still out of his arm. Just as it had when he spent a youth in and out of a nod. Just as it had when he attended my wedding 3 sheets to the nod. Just as it had when he died in a suburban flophouse 9 years ago on the nod. And Christ, wasn't he a frightening sight in the light when I turned it on and thought that might be a help? For there were the maggots, sure there were those, and the natural decomposition of the flesh those 9 years in a box in the ground will bring about, and his general pissed demeanor. And the needle that stuck still out of his arm, finding not a vein to spike, so I turned them back off, the lights. And surely the symbolism can't be lost on you there, surely it can't be. Tell me, Brian, dear, tell me this true, for I've heard it told tale before in that cultures of others, that the ghostly visitations of ghosts and ghouls are friendly reminders into the obligations of humanity. They are congenial, as sometimes a ghost may sit by the fire with the haunted and share a cherry brandy and sing songs of rebellion and talk of the olden times. They have a laugh into the nature of life. One tells the other how much they miss them, and then they both retire to their respective rests. Is this one of those? Like fuck it is, Brian said, ripping layers of flesh off his face to reveal his bony skull and parts of his decaying brain. I had feared as much. This is one of those visitations where I tell you how pissed I am, and you fucking well listen. I had a feeling. And look who I brought along to share in this pistapalooza, Brian said, and brought out Jimmy Boy, and oh Christ, Jimmy Boy, haven't you looked better? Haven't you looked much, much better than the state you are now in? For you've been smashed by a truck after he'd run bad, tripped up, mushroomed up, headlong into the highway traffic. And wasn't he flattened, and now, before dead Brian and I, flat, like Flat Stanley. And if I brought Jimmy Boy to the Eiffel Tower and took a picture, would my teacher give me extra credit? What's the word, Jimmy Boy, I asked. I'm pissed, Jimmy Boy said, and get in fucking line apparently. Again, I question the timing here, lads. I question 9 years, and is it 12 now, Jimmy Boy? Is it 12 years now since you've called breathing, friend? It's 13. You'll have to excuse him, Jimmy, Brian chimed in. He was up at 3 in the morning on the computer looking up an antonym for somnambulant. The fuckers had a real good dead laugh at that one. Nearly laughed their dead asses off at that. Where are we going with this, lads, I asked. What's the point here, lads? What is it you ask of me here in this state of visitation? What can I help you with? Your fault, they both said at once. And could that be true? I wondered if that were true. It didn't ring true in my mind and conscience. In my thoughts and feelings, it didn't ring true. I wasn't there when the fatal needle plunged deep into sickly veins, nor when psychotic episodes took the life of another Irish. I was far from guilty. I was homebound, Bronx-bound. They spread their wings and flew to climes and climates new while I stuck to the Bronx-bound. Okay then, lads, my fault entirely, and I'd have to say sorry then, lads. I'd have to apologize for your pain and your suffering, dear friends, and bear it on my slender shoulders. Where I've wronged you, I'll right you. Where I've let you down, I'll pick you up. It's my fault, and I could hardly stand it anymore, and sincere. For I could hardly stand it anymore, the guilt of the ghosts, the failures of an attempted life, the fuck-ups of the fucked up. For maybe it really was my fault that they ended up as such. The plain truth of the matter was that I'd never been good at the whole game. Had me baffled and lost, that life itself felt a failure for what I'd fucked up. Knew not my next step or my next move or my next turn. And when I look back at it all, the other transgressions propped up and caused remorse and sadness and heavy guilt. For hadn't I been the one to ruin shit for young Brian when I stole his one and only girlfriend when we were both 17, and left her lying low at the carnival, stuck on the Ferris wheel, with no obvious means of getting off? And there were others, for didn't I break my poor mother's heart time and again with my lack of ambition or drive? Wasn't it the goal of the immigrant to have their child be better off than themselves? Didn't she want me to move from Kingsbridge and set myself up in a nice split level out in Westchester along with all the other baked potatoes? Irish on the outside, white and fluffy on the inside, fucking Uncle Tim's. Didn't she want from time to time to come out to Pearl Rivers and visit the grandchildren, Deirdre and Seamus, she'd even named them, and bemoan how they had lost touch with their culture, though we had them in step dancing and hurling and baked potato cooking lessons? Wouldn't she have loved the suburban St. Patrick's Day parades, what with their streets lined with half-mix and t-shirts that read Irish temper, Italian attitude, and Irish temper, German fascism, and Irish temper, Armenian back hair? Half-mix lining the streets to watch the parade of 2 bagpipers, a Chinese step dancer in a really bad wig, 3 fire trucks, and 26 Puerto Ricans, 15 Dominicans, 7 African Americans, and Patty Coyle playing in the elementary school band the worst xylophone version of Danny Boy ever. And surprised as shit they didn't bring her along with them. Shocked as shit that she hadn't shown up to chime in her disappointment and general pissedness until... "I'm fucking pissed," my mother said, chiming in her disappointment and general pissedness. "Hi, Mom," I said. "Hiya, son. How's it going?" "Fucking disappointed, to be quite honest, this whole death thing, like, drafty." "Is it, Mom? Do you have a sweater?" "If I had a fucking sweater, it wouldn't be so disappointing, now would it?" "I suppose not, Mom. And your fault you put me in my early grave with your pot smoking and refusal to marry or move to Westchester." 88 is hardly an early grave, Mother. And it's hardly Methuselah either now, is it? "No, I suppose it's not, Mother. I'm sorry for putting you in your early grave. So a failure, granted, given, as a friend and a son. The pair of bollocks had come all the way back from dead to let me know, and brought my mother with them, and with dead friends like that. And even after the lot of dead left for their holes in the ground, I could never find an antonym for somnambulant."